The arrogance of stars the Galactic Council had stood unchallenged for 3,000 years. 17 species, each older than human civilization itself, governed the known universe from the Zenith Spire, a station carved from a dying star's heart. They were architects of reality, shapers of law, enforcers of order, and they were certain, absolutely certain, that they had seen everything the cosmos could offer. Then humanity applied for membership. Counselor Thexrun of the Vexalian Empire barely glanced at the data scroll floating before his 7 eyes. The creatures called humans had only just achieved faster-than-light travel. Primitives, really. Their homeworld Earth was a backwater rock in an unremarkable spiral arm. They possessed no unique resources, no ancient lineage, no telepathic gifts or gravity manipulation or dimensional folding, just meat and bones and an atmosphere composed of poison to most civilized species. Denied, Thexrun announced, his voice resonating through the council chamber like thunder through crystal. They may reapply in 500 standard cycles, provided they demonstrate sufficient cultural evolution. The other counselors murmured agreement. The Calthene representative, a being of pure energy contained within geometric force fields, pulsed with amusement. The hive mind of the Skrell chittered mockingly. 500 years was generous, they thought. These humans would likely annihilate themselves long before then, as all violent species eventually did. Ambassador Sarah Chen stood in the supplicant's circle, a lone human surrounded by beings who could reshape planets with thought alone. Her gray suit seemed laughably primitive compared to the living armor and quantum weaves surrounding her, but her eyes, those brown human eyes, held something the Council had not seen in centuries. Defiance. "We understand your decision," she said, her voice steady, "but we'd like to make one request before we leave." Thexrun waved a dismissive appendage. "Speak quickly, primitive. Let us prove ourselves. One challenge, one test of our worth. If we fail, we'll accept your judgment and return to our corner of space. If we succeed, you grant us provisional membership." The council chamber erupted in what might have been laughter in a dozen different frequencies. The Vexalians hooted through their breathing vents. The crystalline Korath rang like cracked bells. Even the ancient archons, beings who communicated only once per century, stirred with something resembling amusement. "Very well," Thexrun said, his tone dripping with condescension. "We shall grant you this entertainment. The trial of worth awaits those foolish enough to attempt it. 3 stations guard the approaches to the Void Gate, the ancient passage to dimensions unknown. Each station is defended by automated systems designed by civilizations that predated even us. In 3,000 years, no species has survived reaching the 2nd station. Most perish within the first hour." He leaned forward, all 7 eyes focusing on the small human. "Navigate the 3 stations. Reach the Void Gate. Do this, and perhaps we shall reconsider our position, though I suspect we'll simply be arranging for the return of your remains." Sarah Chen smiled. It was not a warm smile. It was the smile of a predator recognizing prey. "Give us 1 month," she said. "You may have 3. Thexrun replied magnanimously. "We wouldn't want history to record that we were unfair to such enthusiastic children." The human ambassador bowed, a gesture of respect that somehow felt like a threat, and left the chamber. The council returned to more important matters: border disputes between the Calthene and Skrell, resource allocation for the demilitarized zones, philosophical debates on the nature of consciousness. They had already forgotten about the humans and their suicidal test. They should have paid attention. In her transport ship accelerating away from the Zenith Spire, Sarah Chen activated her quantum communicator. The face that appeared on the holographic display was weathered and scarred, belonging to Admiral Marcus Webb of the Terran Defense Fleet. "How'd it go?" he asked, though his expression suggested he already knew. "Exactly as predicted," Sarah replied. "They're arrogant, dismissive, and they've just given us access to their most sacred proving ground. They think we're going to die in the first hour." The Admiral's lips quirked into something between a grimace and a grin. "Do they know what we found?" "No. They're too busy being superior to notice that humanity has been reverse engineering their technology for the past 30 years. They don't know about New Prometheus. They don't know about the Ghost Fleet. And they certainly don't know what we discovered on Kepler 442b. The anomaly?" "The anomaly," Sarah confirmed. "Marcus, those defense stations they're so proud of. They're not designed to keep people out of the Void Gate. They're designed to keep something in. Silence stretched between them, heavy with implication. Finally, Admiral Webb spoke. "How long until you're back?" 12 hours. "Good, because we're not just going to pass their test, Ambassador. We're going to show the Galactic Council exactly why humanity doesn't ask for permission anymore." Sarah ended the transmission and stared out at the stars rushing past her viewport. Somewhere out there, 3 ancient stations waited in the dark, surrounded by the wreckage of 100 failed civilizations. Beyond them lay the Void Gate, and beyond that, something the galaxy's greatest powers had decided should remain sealed away forever. Humanity was about to open it anyway, because that's what humans did. They saw the signs that said "keep out" and heard them as invitations. They found locked doors and started looking for keys, or explosives. They were told something was impossible, and they took it as a personal challenge. The Galactic Council thought they were gods. They were about to learn they were just the previous tenants, and humanity had just moved into the neighborhood. The first station, the Acheron, hung in the void like a knife suspended in tar. She was humanity's answer to alien superiority. 400 meters of matte black composite armor, quantum-entangled weapon systems, and enough electromagnetic shielding to hide from sensors designed by civilizations that had been manipulating space-time, while humans were still climbing down from trees. Admiral Marcus Webb stood on the bridge, hands clasped behind his back, watching the first station materialize on the tactical display. It rotated slowly, a geometric impossibility of interlocking rings and spires that seemed to occupy more dimensions than the human eye could process. Just looking at it made his head hurt. "Distance to target?" he asked. 200,000 kilometers in closing, replied Commander Yuki Tanaka from the navigation console. "The wrecks are starting to appear on sensors." "How many?" "Hundreds, sir." "Maybe thousands. Ships from species we don't even have records of. Some of this debris is older than our solar system." Webb nodded grimly. The Council hadn't been exaggerating about the trial's difficulty. The space surrounding the first station was a graveyard of ambition, a monument to every species arrogant enough to think they could pass the test. "Lieutenant Okonkwo, what are we looking at?" The tactical officer's fingers danced across holographic displays. "Automated defense grid, sir. Energy weapons, kinetic projectiles, and something else. Spatial distortions, maybe gravity wells. The attack patterns are adaptive. Every ship that's attempted approach triggered different responses. It's learning from them." "A machine that learns from its kills," Webb muttered. "Charming." "Sir, we're being hailed," said Communications Officer Chen. "It's the Galactic Council. They're offering us one last chance to withdraw with honor." "Honor," Webb repeated, tasting the word like poison. "Tell them we'll take our chances and kill the feed. I don't want an audience for this." "Admiral," Tanaka said carefully, "the automated systems are activating. We're being targeted by 47 different weapons platforms." 48, Okonkwo corrected. New contacts emerging from the station's interior. Webb allowed himself a thin smile. "Dr. Reeves, is the Ghost Protocol ready?" From the science station, Dr. Amara Reeves looked up from her displays. She was young for her position, barely 30, but she'd been part of the team that had cracked Vexalian quantum encryption. "Ready, Admiral? But I should remind you that we've only tested this in simulation. And those simulations? 63% success rate. I'll take those odds. Engage Ghost Protocol. Let's see if these ancient bastards can shoot what they can't perceive." The Acheron shuddered as exotic matter flooded through her hull plating. To any observer, what happened next would have seemed like magic. The ship didn't disappear. Disappearing would be too simple, too detectable. Instead, she became irrelevant. Quantum probability fields convinced the universe that the Acheron was simultaneously everywhere and nowhere. A ship-shaped uncertainty that sensors couldn't resolve because reality itself couldn't decide where to look. The first volley of energy weapons passed through the space the Acheron had occupied, striking nothing. The kinetic projectiles calculated intercept courses based on mass that was suddenly impossible to measure. The gravity wells reached for prey that existed in too many states to capture. "All weapons missed," Okonkwo reported, his voice tight with barely contained amazement. "The defense grid is recalibrating, but it can't get a lock." "Bring us in," Webb ordered. "Nice and slow. Let's not give them any sudden movements to track." The Acheron glided forward like a ghost passing through a cemetery, weaving between the debris of dead civilizations. Behind them, The weapons platforms continued firing at shadows and probabilities, their ancient algorithms struggling to comprehend prey that refused to exist in a single, convenient location. "We're passing the outer defensive perimeter," Tanaka announced, entering the kill zone where 90% of previous attempts failed. Nothing happened. The bridge crew exchanged glances. It felt wrong somehow, this quiet. The defense grid should have adapted by now, should have found a way to target them. But the weapons platforms just hung there, firing at ghosts while the real threat slipped past. "Sir," Reeves said suddenly, her voice sharp with alarm. "I'm reading massive energy buildup in the station's core. It's not targeting us, it's charging something else." Webb's instinct screamed. 3,000 years, thousands of attempts, and not a single ship had made it past the first station. Not because they couldn't survive the weapons, but because full reverse thrust, he shouted. "Get us away from that station now." The Acheron's engines roared, pushing the ship backward even as the station's core reached critical mass. For a moment, space itself seemed to hold its breath. Then the first station opened like a flower of light and fury, and everything changed. It wasn't an explosion. Explosions followed rules, had predictable patterns. This was a weaponized rejection of physics itself. Reality tore open, and through the tear came something that made the human mind rebel, a wave of unexistence that unmade anything it touched. The debris field, those ancient wrecks that had floated here for millennia, simply ceased, not destroyed, erased, as if they had never been. "Evasive pattern Gamma," Webb ordered.
"Deploy quantum chaff!"
The Acheron twisted through space, her drives pushing beyond safety limits. Behind them, the wave of annihilation expanded, erasing stars from view, removing existence itself. The quantum chaff, exotic particles designed to confuse reality-warping weapons, scattered behind them like glittering breadcrumbs. Each mode a tiny sacrifice to buy them milliseconds. It was enough. The wave collapsed inward, folding back into the station like a tongue returning to a mouth. The first station resumed its slow rotation, apparently dormant once more, surrounded now by completely empty space. Every trace of the graveyard had been erased. On the Acheron's bridge, nobody spoke for a long moment. "Status," Webb finally managed. "Hull integrity at 94%, Okonkwo reported, his voice shaking. "Shields depleted but regenerating. We made it, sir." "That wasn't a defense," Reeves whispered. "That was a reset button. Everyone who fails the test gets erased, all evidence removed. The Council has been feeding civilizations to that thing for 3,000 years. Webb's jaw clenched. And they knew. They knew exactly what would happen to us. "Sir," Tanaka interrupted, "we're receiving another transmission from the Council. They're demanding we abort the trial immediately." "I bet they are," Webb said quietly. "They just showed their hand. That station isn't a test of worthiness. It's an execution method, and we just survived what was supposed to be an unsurvivable sentence." He straightened his uniform. "Tell them we're continuing to the second station. And Chen, sir, make sure this gets recorded and transmitted to every human colony. Every ship, every settlement from Earth to the frontier. The Galactic Council just tried to murder us under the guise of a fair test. I want everyone to know what we're really dealing with." "Already done, Admiral," Chen replied with grim satisfaction. "The message will reach Earth in 6 hours." Webb turned back to the view screen, where the second station was just becoming visible in the distance, larger, more complex, and undoubtedly more lethal than the first. "All hands, this is the Admiral," he said over the ship-wide channel. "We've just proven that humanity can survive what the galaxy's greatest civilizations could not. We've passed the test that was designed to have no survivors. Now we're going to do it 2 more times, and then we're going to crack open that void gate and see what they're hiding. Not because we're the strongest or the smartest, but because we're the most stubborn bastards the universe has ever tried to kill. Battle stations. We've got work to do." The Acheron accelerated into the dark, leaving behind empty space where a graveyard had once been. The first humans to survive a test designed for genocide, heading toward challenges that would make the first station look like a warning shot. Part 3. The second station. The second station looked like a bleeding star. Pulses of crimson energy radiated from its central core, each wave distorting the fabric of space, making distance and direction meaningless concepts. The structure itself defied easy description. It was a sphere, a cube, a pyramid, all of these and none of these, shifting between geometries as though it couldn't decide what shape it wanted to be. "What the hell are we looking at?" Webb asked, though he wasn't sure he wanted the answer. Dr. Reeves studied her readings with the intensity of someone who had just discovered the universe was stranger than her wildest theories. It's not just one station, Admiral. It's occupying multiple dimensional states simultaneously. We're seeing different versions of it layered on top of each other. It's beautiful, and completely impossible according to everything we know about physics. Can we approach it safely? Define safely, Reeves replied without looking up. Because if you mean without being torn apart across 6 dimensions, then probably not. Webb grimaced. Commander Tanaka, take us in slowly. I want maximum distance between us and whatever that thing decides to do. Admiral, a version of Tanaka screamed. Hull breach on decks 4 through 7. We're losing atmosphere. This wasn't happening. This was a vision, a possibility, a future that hadn't occurred yet. Webb knew this intellectually, but his heart hammered in his chest because it felt absolutely real. Then the vision shifted. Now he stood in empty space, his body somehow surviving in vacuum. Around him floated the debris of the Acheron, spinning slowly. And beyond the wreckage, the second station pulsed with satisfaction, as if feeding on the death it had caused. Another shift. He was back on the bridge, but older now, grizzled. Metals covered his uniform. Stand down, he heard himself say to someone off-screen. We've been at war for 20 years. Enough blood has been spilled. Flash. He was younger, a cadet sitting in a classroom on Earth. The instructor was explaining why humans would never achieve faster-than-light travel. We're not meant for the stars, the instructor said. Best we stay home. Flash. He was dying, an old man in a hospital bed surrounded by grandchildren he'd never had. One of them asked, Did you really flip off the entire Galactic Council, Grandpa? And he smiled, unable to answer. Admiral, the voice cut through the visions like a knife through fog. Webb gasped, finding himself back on his bridge, his real bridge in his real timeline. Dr. Reeves had her hand on his shoulder, shaking him. You were gone, she said. Your consciousness was elsewhere. For 3 minutes you weren't here. Webb looked around. Every member of his crew was recovering from similar experiences, shaking off visions of alternate timelines. Some were crying. Others looked determined. Tanaka was white as a sheet. Report, Webb managed. The station is showing us possibilities, Reeves explained quickly. Not just possible futures, possible pasts, parallel presents, everything that could be or could have been. It's a weapon, but not the kind we're used to. It doesn't destroy ships. It destroys certainty. It makes you experience every way you could fail, every way you could die, every alternate choice until you're paralyzed by possibility. How do we fight that? You don't fight it, came a new voice. Everyone turned. Standing in the center of the bridge, where nothing had been moments before, was a figure in a pressure suit. The suit was ancient, its design predating human spaceflight by centuries. Through the faceplate, they could see nothing. Just darkness where a face should be. Who the hell are you? Webb demanded, his hand moving to his sidearm. I am the warning, the figure said. Its voice came from everywhere and nowhere, speaking simultaneously in English and in languages that hadn't been spoken in millennia. I am what remains of the predecessor species who built these stations. We are the reason the Galactic Council exists. We are their cautionary tale. You built the stations as weapons? We built them as keys, the warning replied. The Council calls them a trial. They lie. These are not tests of worthiness. They are guards, designed to keep the unworthy away from what lies beyond the void gate. And you, humans, are spectacularly unworthy. Then why are you here? Reeves asked. The figure turned to her, though it had no visible eyes to turn. Because worthiness is relative. The predecessor species were worthy. We were advanced, enlightened, peaceful. We passed the tests because we understood their true nature. And when we opened the void gate, we found something that annihilated us. Only I remain, bound to these stations, condemned to warn those who come after. Warn us about what? The gate leads to the architects. Not the architects of these stations, the architects of reality itself. They exist beyond dimension, beyond time. They created the framework upon which existence is built. And when a species opens the gate, the architects judge them. The predecessor species was found wanting. We were too cautious, too careful, too civilized. The architects unmade us for being boring. The bridge fell silent. But you humans, the warning continued. And was that amusement in its voice? You are many things, but boring isn't one of them. The Galactic Council fears you not because you're strong, but because you're unpredictable. You see a locked door and reach for explosives. You're told something is impossible and hear it as a dare. You are, by any measure of galactic civilization, absolutely insane. Is there a point to this? Webb asked. Yes, the second station shows you every path you could take. Every failure, every success, every possibility branching into infinity. It paralyzes the thoughtful because they become trapped considering every outcome. But you won't, will you? Because humans have a wonderful talent for ignoring possibilities and charging ahead with terrible plans anyway. You're saying we should just not think about it? I'm saying your species' greatest weakness is also your greatest strength. You don't overthink. You don't become paralyzed by possibility. You see the path forward and you take it. Consequences be damned. The warning began to fade. The second station can't harm those who refuse to be harmed by certainty. Choose a direction, Admiral. Any direction. And go. Wait, Reeves called out. What about the third station? The warning's voice came from very far away now. The third station is simple. It tests whether you can pay the price for what you seek. Every species fails it because they're not willing to sacrifice what matters. But you humans? You'll burn the whole galaxy down if it gets you what you want. Good luck, primitives. You're going to need it. Then the figure was gone, leaving only silence and questions. Webb looked at his crew. They were shaken but unbroken. Commander Tanaka, he said quietly. Full speed ahead. Straight through the station. Sir, that's suicide. Probably, Webb agreed. But the warning was right. We're not going to beat this thing by being careful. We're going to beat it by being too stupid to know when we should give up. Full speed. Tanaka swallowed hard, then nodded. Aye, sir. All hands brace for impact. The Acheron surged forward, accelerating directly toward the shifting, impossible geometry of the second station. Around them, possibilities bloomed and died. Futures where they succeeded, pasts where they'd never tried, presents where they'd already failed. The view screen showed a dozen different realities at once. But Webb kept his eyes fixed on only one. The reality where his ship was moving forward. His crew was alive and they were still fighting. The station pulsed. The Acheron struck the energy field. For a moment that felt like eternity. They existed in every possibility simultaneously. Then they were through, emerging on the far side intact, impossible, unscathed. Behind them, the second station continued its eternal rotation, waiting for the next species thoughtful enough to be destroyed by their own consideration. Ahead, the third station loomed, a structure of such absolute darkness that it seemed to be carved from the absence of light itself. And beyond that, barely visible in the distance, the void gate waited. The price of entry, the third station looked like a monument to grief. It was built from some material that absorbed light so completely that it seemed less like an object and more like a hole in space, a wound in reality that refused to heal. No weapon systems were visible, no defensive grids, no energy signatures of any kind. It simply existed waiting, impossibly patient. I don't like this, Okonkwo muttered from his station. The first station tried to kill us. The second station tried to break us. This one, it's not doing anything. Just sitting there. Maybe that's the test, Tanaka suggested nervously. Maybe we're supposed to approach it. Webb studied the structure through the view screen. After everything they'd been through, the weapons, the visions, the impossible choices, this silence felt more threatening than any open attack. Dr. Reeves, what are your readings? Reeves had been staring at her console for the past 10 minutes, her expression growing increasingly troubled. That's just it, Admiral. I'm reading nothing. Not low energy signatures, not minimal activity. Literally nothing. It's like there's a station-shaped void in space-time where information simply stops existing. A black hole? No, black holes we can detect. This is different. It's as if the station is built from the concept of absence itself. Philosophical hardware, Webb muttered. Wonderful. A soft chime interrupted his thoughts. Chen looked up from communications. Admiral, we're being hailed. It's not the council this time. The signal is coming from the station itself. On screen, the view screen flickered. Instead of an image, text appeared, words in perfect English, though the characters seemed to writhe slightly, as if uncomfortable existing in visible form. Welcome to the final test. You have proven yourselves capable of survival and decisiveness. Now you must prove your willingness to pay the cost of knowledge. It's talking to us, Tanaka whispered. More text scrolled across the screen. The Void Gate guards the greatest secret in existence to pass. You must sacrifice what you value most, not lives, not ships, not equipment, something more fundamental. Riddles, Webb said flatly. After everything we've been through, the final test is a riddle, not a riddle. Oh, price a toll. The predecessor species offered their collective memory. The Valkresh offered their capacity for emotion. The Urkath offered their individual identity. All were found wanting. Their offerings were insufficient. What will humanity offer? This is insane, Okonkwo said. It's asking us to give up something intangible. How do we even...